I got you now, you son of a bitch.
You're a daisy if you do.
Doc Holliday, in my memory, has always been a dentist who was also a notorious gunslinger, the loyal friend of Wyatt Earp, the survivor of the legendary gunfight at OK Corral. He is remembered as a symbol of recklessness and absolute loyalty in the gun-smoke-filled world of the Wild West. But behind that glamorous image is a tragedy that the film crew has always hidden for decades. Did you know that Val Kilmer was exploited physically to the point of exhaustion to portray the most authentic Doc Holliday? Or that Kurt Russell silently carried the entire film when the main director was fired, sleeping only a few hours each night? And the near-fatal accidents, from a piece of metal flying past Kilmer's eyelid to a stuntman being dragged under horse hooves only a few centimeters from death, all were kept secret by the film crew for many years. So why did they hide these truths? What is in today's video will completely change your thoughts about Doc Holliday. Let's find out right now. 15. The confrontation scene with Johnny Ringo almost made Kilmer blind. There is a truth the film crew once hid for many years about the scene where Doc Holliday confronted Johnny Ringo. Do you remember the moment when the two men stood face to face in the middle of the street of Tombstone, guns firing loudly? The atmosphere so tense it was suffocating. Val Kilmer, in the role of Doc, kept his cold demeanour, the hoarse voice typical of a tuberculosis patient. But at the very moment the blank round exploded, a small piece of metal from the cartridge casing flew off course, grazing close to his right eyelid, only a few millimeters from the cornea. If it had been off by just 2 or 3 more centimeters, he might have lost his eye permanently. Kilmer was startled but still stood in place without a single complaint. The film crew immediately stopped filming, carefully checked his eye. Fortunately, it was only a light scratch. The eye was not seriously injured. They handled it quietly. No official accident report was recorded. No report to the studio, fearing rumours would spread and slow down the schedule or affect the image of the film. Kilmer wiped the blood, took a few deep breaths, and then continued filming the rest of that scene as if nothing had happened. On screen, the confrontation scene remained perfect, full of drama. Later, when Tombstone had been released and became a classic, Kilmer recounted it in a private conversation, his voice low.
The screenplay suggested that this was the real Wyatt Earp, so I did really want to play the real Wyatt Earp.
Those who once sat in the theatre, nervously watching that classic moment, few knew that behind the screen light was a second that almost changed the actor's entire life. 14. Val Kilmer pushed his body to the limit to become Doc Holliday. Anyone who watched Tombstone could not forget the frightening image of Doc Holliday. A thin body, pale skin, deep-set eyes, a hoarse voice like someone about to stop breathing. Val Kilmer turned that character into an icon, but few know he pushed his body to the limit to achieve that authenticity. Kilmer did not want to pretend to have tuberculosis. Before each scene, he lay on cold ice for hours to lower his body temperature, making his skin bluish pale like a dying person. He limited drinking water to the point that his lips cracked. His skin became dry and rough, even deliberately breathed shallow continuously so his voice would be weak and broken. Once during a scene in the saloon, while speaking lines with Wyatt Earp, he suddenly fainted on the spot. The entire crew panicked, but quickly took him outside, gave him oxygen for a few minutes, and then continued filming. No one dared to make it a big issue, fearing it would affect the schedule. Kilmer woke up, wiped the sweat, then returned to position, continued acting as if nothing had happened. Later, in a rare interview, he admitted in a low, sad voice, "I went too far. I wanted Doc to truly live in me, but I almost was no longer myself." Those silent sacrifices, now when thinking back, make us not only admire Kilmer's talent, but also feel sorrow for the man who gave his health to bring an immortal Doc Holliday to the screen. Tombstone is beautiful, but behind it are harsh days that few know about. 13. The real Doc Holliday once killed people. More than you think. We all know that on screen, Doc Holliday is a loyal, witty, talented friend, always standing beside Wyatt Earp, with a mocking smile and a gun as fast as lightning. Val Kilmer portrayed him beautifully, almost romanticized him, making generations of audiences love him. But in real life, Doc Holliday was much darker and more complex. Historical records note that he was involved in at least 8 to 10 shootings, from saloon brawls to settling gambling debts. He was heavily addicted to alcohol to the point of frequently being drunk, lived with prostitutes, most famously Big Nose Kate, and gambled professionally, not afraid to cheat. With just one wrong look, one insulting word, he was ready to draw his gun. His life was a series of wandering days from Georgia to Texas, Arizona, Colorado, tormented by tuberculosis, yet he still did not stop violence and gambling. He was not a pure hero as the film portrayed, but a man eroded by illness, alcohol, and an unstable temperament. The film Tombstone chose to tell the most beautiful part: friendship, loyalty, and a bit of romantic tragedy. Real life was harsher, without aura. Those details were kept hidden or softened so the audience would feel more comfortable when watching. Now thinking back, we see the film is not only entertainment, it is also the way we want to remember a wild period where people were both heroic and pitiful. 12. A stuntman almost died being dragged under horse hooves. In Tombstone, there was an accident that almost cost a stuntman his life, and the strange thing is that the film crew kept it secret for many years. In an action scene of a horse chase, the stuntman's belt suddenly got tightly caught in the stirrup. The panicked horse ran forward, dragging him across rough gravel ground for dozens of meters. His head hit rocks repeatedly, dust flew everywhere. Horse hooves stepped close only a few centimeters from his head. Fortunately, the horse stopped in time, thanks to a handler who managed to pull the reins. The stuntman lay motionless, blood flowing from his head and face, but he was still breathing. The film crew immediately took him off the set, bandaged his wounds, called a private doctor. Fortunately, only a few broken ribs and a mild head injury, not life-threatening. They did not officially report to the studio, did not record an accident report, did not let the news spread to the press. At that time, Western films often accepted high risks, and any scandal could cause the project to be suspended. The stuntman rested for a few days, then returned to work as if nothing had happened. That scene remained unchanged in the film, but no one knew that behind it was a moment that almost took a life. Later, only in private conversations with colleagues was the detail told again. It reminds us that every action scene we see on screen may carry real fear, and the filmmakers at that time chose silence to protect the film, as well as the beautiful memory we keep about Tombstone. 11. Blank rounds can still kill people. In Tombstone, the gunfire scenes thunder loudly, gunpowder smoke fills the air. The sharp explosions make the audience believe everything is authentic. To achieve that effect, the film crew not only used normal blank rounds, but also used some real guns specially modified. They were loaded with stronger blank rounds, with a larger amount of gunpowder to create bigger sparks and louder explosions, almost like real guns of the Old West period. In a practice shooting scene, a piece of wadding, the paper or cotton packing inside a blank round, shot out at high speed, grazing close to Kurt Russell's head, only a few centimeters away. He was startled, felt the hot airflow and the burnt smell passing by. That scene was completely cut from the final version of the film, without a trace. The film crew immediately asked everyone to stay silent. Do not tell the press, do not record, do not discuss. They feared that if the news spread, the studio would tighten safety, or worse, the project would be suspended halfway. Kurt Russell only shook his head, checked the gun again and continued filming. Later, in private conversations with colleagues, he admitted, "Blank is not a toy. At close range, it can really kill." Small scratches, temporary ringing in the ears of several other actors were also kept hidden. They chose silence to protect the film, so that Tombstone would remain the grand memory we love without being overshadowed by the shadow of real risk. 10. Kurt Russell admitted he was the real director. Few people realised the person who truly saved Tombstone from collapse was not the official director, but Kurt Russell. When Kevin Jarrah, the writer and original director, was fired midway because of slow progress and creative conflicts, the set fell into chaos. No one coordinated clearly, the shooting schedule was disordered, lines were constantly changed. Kurt Russell, who had only accepted the role of Wyatt Earp, quietly stepped up. He silently approved scenes, revised lines to better match the Old West spirit, guided acting for co-stars, even made shot lists and arranged schedules every night himself. He slept only a few hours, eyes dark, voice hoarse from fatigue, but still persisted. The studio knew but forbade him from going public to avoid legal trouble. If exposed, it could lead to lawsuits with Jarrah or contract issues. Russell did everything in silence, like a father carrying a family. Val Kilmer later recounted, "Kurt was the only one who knew exactly what he was doing. Without him, the film would have died long ago." It was that dedication that kept Tombstone alive, completed on time, and became a classic. He never demanded recognition. Now, watching again, we see Kurt Russell is not only Wyatt Earp on screen, he was also the silent hero behind the camera. Those sacrifices, quiet and steadfast, are what truly make the film immortal in our hearts. 9. The Arizona desert turned the set into hell. The Arizona desert, where Tombstone was filmed, was not a beautiful setting like on screen. At noon, the temperature often reached 40 degrees Celsius, the sun burning the skin like fire. Actors and crew had to wear 3 layers of thick wool costumes, shirt, vest, long coat, to accurately recreate the Old West period. Fine dust from horse hooves and gunpowder filled the air, getting into eyes, noses, throats, making many people cough violently, even cough up blood because of severe lung irritation. Extras and supporting actors often fainted from heat stroke, dehydration. The medical team once requested to temporarily stop filming so everyone could rest, receive fluids, but schedule pressure from the studio always refused. They were only allowed short breaks, then continued under the harsh sun. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, all endured in silence, sweat soaking their clothes, sunburned skin burning painfully. The burnt smell of gunpowder, dust and sweat mixed day and night, making the set air heavy like earthly hell. Those harsh days not only tested physical strength, but also created a strange bond within the crew. They knew that endurance brought authenticity to every frame. Now, thinking back, Tombstone is heartbreakingly beautiful, but behind it are calloused hands, sunburned skin, and sleepless nights that few know about. 8. The film was almost killed in the cradle. Few people know that Tombstone was almost killed in the cradle before it could be born. Kevin Jarrah's script was rejected by major studios for many years. In the early 90s, the Western genre was considered dead. Audiences turned to modern action films, science fiction blockbusters, or comedies. Producers shook their heads, saying Western could no longer sell, too old-fashioned, too expensive. The Tombstone project was shelved, almost having no chance to start. Kurt Russell, who was passionate about the story of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, persistently fought. He persuaded producers, committed to joining with the role of Wyatt, even accepted a salary reduction to keep the original spirit intact. He met investors, presented the vision. A truthful Western film, not glamorous but accurately portraying the harshness of the Wild West. Thanks to that determination, the project was finally given the green light, despite a tight budget and urgent schedule. Without Kurt Russell, Tombstone might have remained a script lying in a drawer forever. He not only saved the film with his role, but also with strong belief in a genre that many considered outdated. Now thinking back, we feel fortunate for that determination. The film did not only survive, it became a classic, reminding us that sometimes just one persistent person is enough to revive a beautiful memory of cinema. 7. Sam Elliott hid a broken rib injury. Do you remember Sam Elliott in the role of Virgil Earp, the serious older brother standing straight at the line between life and death in Tombstone? On screen, he radiated authority, not a bit shaken. But few know that behind that image was a real injury that Sam Elliott kept hidden throughout filming. In a horse chase scene, the horse suddenly stumbled, throwing Elliott hard onto ground as hard as stone. He hit his whole body. The ribs on the right side cracked. Each breath was a sharp pain. The film doctor examined him, advised resting at least a few weeks, even risked a full break if continuing. But Elliott shook his head. He feared that if he showed weakness, the role would be replaced. At that time, older actors were often easily removed from projects if they could not endure hardship. He wrapped it lightly, took painkillers, then returned to the set as if nothing had happened. Each time riding a horse or moving, the pain spread across his chest, but he still kept a straight posture, voice steady and deep. On screen, Virgil Earp remained the pillar of the family, without a single sign of weakness. That silent resilience makes us appreciate his image in the film even more. Not only acting, but the real person who endured pain to maintain the role. 6. The real Doc Holliday truly died in loneliness and addiction. We often remember Doc Holliday through the image of Val Kilmer on screen, a fragile but sharp man, always keeping a mocking smile despite illness tormenting him. The film gave him a tragic ending, dying after the OK Corral battle, beside friends with a bit of heroic aura. But the real life of John Henry Holliday was much harsher and lonelier. He suffered from tuberculosis very early, a disease that tormented him for more than a decade. To reduce pain, he drank heavy alcohol and used morphine more and more, his body gradually exhausted. Money ran out because of gambling and a loose lifestyle. He wandered from Arizona to Colorado, lived in shabby rented rooms, no longer strong enough to draw a gun or gamble like before. On November 8, 1887, at the age of 36, Doc died at the hospital in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. No wife or children, no relatives by his side, only a nurse and a few acquaintances visiting. His last words, when looking at his swollen legs and emaciated body: "This is funny. He once thought he would die in a glorious gunfight, among gunsmoke and road dust. But fate let him leave quietly on a sickbed, in a cold room, without a single farewell." The film Tombstone softened that tragedy, so the audience would feel more comfortable when saying goodbye to the character. But the truth remains there, reminding that behind cinematic aura is a real man swallowed by illness, loneliness, and addiction. 5. The OK Corral gunfight scene caused real injuries. The OK Corral gunfight scene is the most classic moment of Tombstone. Continuous gunshots, thick gunpowder smoke, screams echoing through the streets of Tombstone. On screen, it is perfect, dramatic to the point of suffocation. But to get that scene, the entire crew had to endure real injuries, although no one spoke about it at the time. They filmed this scene for 4 consecutive days, more than 70 blank shots, each one a sharp explosion shaking the space. The sound was so loud that the ears of actors and extras rang for many weeks afterward. Some had to use earplugs but still could not avoid temporary hearing damage. Sparks from the gun barrels flew out, causing minor burns on the hands, necks and faces of several extras. Skin red and burning, blistered, had to be bandaged on the spot. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott and the main cast stood close together in shooting positions, enduring gunpowder smoke inhaled into their lungs, dry coughing throughout those days. There was no long rest time. Schedule pressure made them continue despite fatigue and pain. The crew kept silent about these small injuries, not wanting to interrupt or create rumours. After finishing filming, many people had to have their ears checked, use anti-inflammatory medicine, but on screen, the gunfight scene remained intact in power. 4. A scene was cut because Wyatt was too cruel. We often remember Wyatt Earp in Tombstone as a righteous hero, determined, taking revenge for family and friends with dignity. But in the first cut of the film, Wyatt was portrayed much more cruel than the version we watch today. After the OK Corral battle, there were scenes showing Wyatt chasing and killing cowboys coldly, without mercy. He shot from behind, gave opponents no chance. Even there was a scene where he stood looking at corpses with an emotionless face, almost enjoying revenge. Those moments carried a dark tone, closer to a cold-blooded avenger than a heroic lawman. When screened for test audience, negative reactions flooded in. Audiences at that time, especially older people familiar with classic Western images, felt uncomfortable, even opposed. They wanted Wyatt to be a symbol of justice, not a merciless killer. The studio worried that that image would reduce commercial appeal, cause the film to be labelled too violent or lose sympathy from the general audience. Kevin Jarre and Kurt Russell, who at that time had taken on the actual directing role, were forced to cut almost all those scenes. The final cut kept just enough revenge to maintain tension, but softened the cruelty, so Wyatt remained a hero that people could accept more easily. The decision to cut those scenes, although regrettable for those who love psychological depth, helped Tombstone reach millions of audiences. 3. Doc Holliday was not originally for Val Kilmer. When the Tombstone project began, the role of Doc Holliday was not thought of for Val Kilmer. The studio wanted a more safe name, someone famous, easy to market, less risk in personality. Kilmer at that time was considered talented but too strong in character, often controversial, had a reputation for being difficult to work with. Initially, they aimed at bigger names, familiar to general audiences, to ensure revenue and avoid trouble on set. Kurt Russell, who carried the entire project, firmly opposed. He believed that only Kilmer could bring Doc Holliday exactly as he imagined. A fragile, witty man, but hiding deadly strength and deep sadness. Russell even threatened to leave the project if Kilmer was not chosen. Finally, they organised a reading session. Kilmer walked into the room, read lines with his characteristic hoarse voice, the familiar mocking smile. The whole room was silent. No one said anything for a long few seconds. Then someone whispered, "Doc has appeared." The decision was made immediately. Kilmer brought to Doc not only acting but the soul. Without Russell's persistence and that moment, we might have had a different Doc Holliday, lacking immortal charm. 2. Almost the entire cast grew real moustaches. When watching Tombstone, you can immediately notice the thick, dense, natural moustaches on the faces of the main characters look very authentic, close to the Old West images we have seen in historical photos. That was not accidental or thanks to skillful makeup. Almost the entire main cast, Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, Sam Elliott as Virgil Earp, Michael Biehn as Johnny Ringo, Powers Booth, as Curly Bill Brosius, all grew real moustaches throughout preparation and filming. They began growing moustaches a few months before cameras rolled, letting them grow naturally, thick, correct to the style of Wild West men of the 1880s. Only a few supporting or minor actors used fake moustaches to save time. That decision came from Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. They wanted every smallest detail to be authentic, from how the moustache moved in desert wind to how it partly covered facial expressions. Russell once said in an interview later, "Fake moustaches will be exposed immediately on the big screen. We wanted the audience to feel the smell of road dust, the breath of alcohol, and real fatigue." Growing real moustaches also brought difficulties. Initial itching, daily care, and when shaving them after filming finished, many felt strange with their faces. But that detail contributed to the lasting appeal of the film. 1. The film score was completed in 4 weeks. The film score of Tombstone, an epic symphony mixed with sadness, with resonant trumpet sounds and emotional violin melodies, is one of the elements that makes the film live forever in the hearts of audiences. Few people know that that legendary score was composed and recorded in only 4 weeks. Bruce Broughton, the talented composer, was invited as a last-minute replacement after the project encountered upheaval with the director and schedule. He received the script, watched the rough cut, then plunged into work without rest. Within 1 month, Broughton wrote the entire music, orchestrated, and conducted the symphony orchestra to record. There was no time for long experimentation, no excessive drafts. Everything had to be perfect from the beginning. He took inspiration from the spirit of the film itself, the harshness of the desert, the friendship between Wyatt and Doc, the sadness of death and loneliness. The opening trumpet sounds like a call of the Wild West. The theme of Doc Holliday carries slight sorrow, all completed under heavy time pressure. That score not only elevated the images, but also brought emotional depth, making simple scenes become haunting. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.